Shukahasha Bhayadrisha Mohabadandita Vitogrinantam Napashyanti Bhavai Bhavam Pitagdrisha Shukahasha Bhayadrisha Mohamadandita Vitogrinantam Napashyanti Bhavai Bhavam Pitagdrisha Shukahasha Bhayadrisha Mohammadanvita Tognantam Napashyanti Bhavai Bhavam Pritagdrisha
Shukahasha Bhayadrisha Mitognantam Napashyanti Bhavam Pitagdrisha
Shukahasha Bhayadrisha Lobha Mohammadanvita Mitognantam Napashyanti Bhavam Pitagdrisha
Shukahasha Bhayadrisha Mohammadanvita Mitognantam Napashyanti Bhavam Pitagdrisha
Ladies.
Shukahasha Bhayadrisha
Shukahasha Bhayadrisha
Lobha Mohammadanvita Mitognantam Napashyanti Bhavai Bhavam Pitagdrisha.
So please repeat the word for word. Shoka, lamentation. Harsha, jubilation. Bhaya, fear. Dvesha, envy. Lobha, greed. Moha, illusion. Mada, madness. Anvitaha, endowed with. Mitaha, one another. Gnantam, engaged in killing. Napashyanti, do not see. Bhavai, because of such differentiation. Bhavan, the situation in relation to the Supreme Lord. Pritagdushaha, persons who see everything as separate from the control of the Lord. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Persons with the vision of differentiation are imbued with the material qualities lamentation, jubilation, fear, envy, greed, illusion, and madness. They are influenced by the immediate cause which they are busy counteracting, because they have no knowledge of the remote supreme cause, the personality of Godhead. Purport. Krishna is the cause of all causes, sarva karana karanam. But one who has no connection with Krishna is disturbed by immediate causes and cannot restrain his vision of separation or differences. When an expert physician treats a patient, he tries to find the original cause of the disease and is not diverted by the symptoms of that original cause. Similarly, a devotee is never disturbed by reverses in life. Tatenu pampam susamikshamana. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.14.8. A devotee understands that when he is in distress, this is due to his own past misdeeds, which are now accruing reactions, although by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, these are only very slight. Karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam. Brahma Samhita 5:54. When a devotee under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is to suffer because of faults in his past deeds, he passes through only a little misery by the grace of the Lord. Although the disease of a devotee is due to mistakes committed sometime in the past, he agrees to suffer and tolerate such miseries, and he depends fully on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, he is never affected by material conditions of lamentation, jubilation, fear, and so on. A devotee never sees anything to be unconnected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Madhvacharya, quoting from the Bhavishya Purana, says, Bhagavad darshanat yasya virodha darshanam pitak pitak drishti saviyeyo natu sadhyava darshinaha. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Yadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sahadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitam Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Govesha Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vanshakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'll just read the verse again. Persons with a vision of differentiation are imbued with the material qualities, lamentation, jubilation, fear, envy, greed, illusion, and madness. They are influenced by the immediate cause which they are busy counteracting, because they have no knowledge of the remote supreme cause, the personality of Godhead. So in this verse, there's two aspects that I've picked up on. The first one is that this vision of dualities, differentiation, that is said in the verse here, this vision of dualities leads to material qualities, illusion, lamentation, and so on. So just by this phrase we can understand that any time we think of dualities, we think in a dualistic way, it means we have material consciousness. Because that is separation, we think this is good, this is bad, and we don't see the connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate cause.
Maybe we can get, kids can go in the other room. Probably we can set up the speaker for them. Yes. I'm trying to work out.
English for me it's hard, in plus with the child.
More slowly.
You are too fluent in your English, and that makes it more difficult to grasp.
Donc,
Okay, so this vision of duality means that there's a material consciousness, because duality means the mind, means the mental platform, because the purpose of the mind is accepting and rejecting. So if we're on that mental platform, we're in a material state of consciousness. So there's this verse in Bhagavad Gita, Bandhuratman manastasya yananatmaiva najitaha anatmanastu shatrudve rate tatmaiva shatruvat. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But one who has failed to do so, the mind is the worst enemy. And in the purport of that verse, Srila Prabhupada explains that the whole purpose of yoga is to control the mind, so that we can make the mind a friend in our pursuance of the mission of human life, which is self-realization. And so if the mind is not controlled, Srila Prabhupada says there is no question of yoga. And he often made this point, all swamis and sadhus preaching so-called yoga, but with no regulations, no sense control, no principles to follow. He says this is just it's a joke. Because if the mind is not controlled, we're living with our worst enemy, and we're completely under the influence of this materialistic mind. And that is a problem in itself, but it also means we cannot pursue the mission of human life, because we're just on this mental platform. And so the mind is the seat of all duality, like I was saying earlier. The mind is rejecting and accepting according to what it finds pleasing, what it finds displeasing, what is nice for the senses or unpleasant for the senses. And not only that, but these things, pleasing, not pleasing, are always changing, always different. We've probably all experienced this, that the mind is really hankering after something and we get it, and then, okay, next thing. There's never any satisfaction there. And in a purport of 11th canto, there's a lot about this actually, about it's what I'm reading at the moment, about how the living entity is really controlled and entangled, like in detail. It's very interesting. And in one of the purports, it just said a very simple thing, that if the mind is constantly attracted and repelled by material objects, there is such mental disturbance that it is impossible to focus on the absolute truth, because there's just too much disturbance. It's like there's this example of a lake or a pond, and if there's lots of turbulence and all the mud from the bottom is coming up and there's things moving around, we can't see through the water, we can't see clearly. So our mind is like that. And when there's turbulence, we cannot see things clearly. We cannot see who we are. We cannot see God. And because of this disturbance. But as we know, the dualities are inherent in this world. There's always dualities, because there's always these changing conditions in the world, whether it's the mind or the external situations, other people, environmental situations. There's always going to be these heat and cold and all these things. So this we cannot change, but the spiritualist, what we try to do is we change our consciousness, we change the way we experience and perceive all these dualities, so that we no longer see them in a dualistic way, and we rise above the mental platform. Because as long as we're on this mental platform, the mind can make heaven into hell or hell into heaven, and there's no reality to that actually, it's just in the mind. So we don't have a choice of the situations that occur in life, we don't have a choice the people we live with, we don't have a choice what we are, our conditioned nature, but we have a choice to change our perspective on it and adjust our vision, adjust our consciousness. So overcoming duality means that we change our consciousness. because the problem in conditioned life is that we see everything as separate from Krishna. That is the root of material existence, is because we turned our back on Krishna and we want to enjoy separately. That means we see separately. We want to see everything separately from Krishna. But again, in the 11th canto is explained that as soon, the moment that we consider anything independent from Krishna, we are immediately taken by the illusory energy of Maya. As soon as we separate from Krishna, we are not in Krishna consciousness, we are in illusion, because nothing is separated from Krishna. So we are trying in our spiritual practice to reconnect everything with Krishna. Everything that we perceive, everything that we experience, we reconnect with Krishna. As it mentioned in this verse here, in material consciousness, we have very limited perspective. Our vision is very narrow because we only see in terms of me, I, and mine, and so that means we have very small perspective, and our world is actually very small. The world is big, but the world we experience and think about and through which we see things is very narrow. So, as said here, we are influenced and focused on the immediate causes, the immediate things that are happening to me, and analyzing these things through the mind, and then, again, as it's mentioned here, we become busy counteracting these immediate causes to adjust our situation so that it's pleasing to our mind and senses. But we're so busy, it's like we're very close to something, very close to a painting or a book we can't see, and we're so busy doing that we forget and we no longer see the ultimate cause. We no longer see in this higher perspective of Krishna consciousness and seeing everything in relation to Krishna with a so much wider perspective, understanding that the immediate causes come from some other cause, my past activities, and ultimately the supreme cause, the personality of Godhead. So Srila Prabhupada says in this purport that Krishna is the cause of all causes, and we know this. It's the first, like one of Sarva Karana Karanam, everybody knows this, but so easily we forget what that means and how it should change the way we experience things. So Prabhupada says that Krishna is the cause of all causes, and when we are disturbed by dualities, it's because we've forgotten this. We are separating the ultimate cause and the immediate causes. But as said here, the expert physician, someone who has intelligence, he will not just look at the symptoms of the disease, he will go back to the root cause. So not just focusing on the immediate things, but focusing on the bigger picture. And there's an interesting verse in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the story, the pastime where Prithu Maharaj was accomplishing all these sacrifices, and Indra was upset, and so he was frustrating all Prithu Maharaj's attempts. And so at the end, at one point Lord Brahma comes to kind of settle the situation, and he gives some instructions to Prithu Maharaj, and one of the things he says is that we should always remember that if something happens by providential arrangement, we should not be very sorry. The more we try to rectify such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest region of materialistic thought. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that reversals should always be seen as providential. That means coming from Krishna, ultimately. And even if there is cause, supposedly on the mental platform, to be unhappy, we shouldn't become busy counteracting reversals, because that kind of perpetuates the idea that at some point everything will be sorted out and then I will be peaceful and happy. Kind of perpetuates this ideal, so that I'm the controller, and if I just adjust this and I just adjust that, everything will be alright. And the more we're busy counteracting these immediate things, like I was saying earlier, the more we narrow our vision and the more we entangle ourselves in this material consciousness, actually. So the devotee doesn't get implicated so much in these. Of course, we have to act, and we still have a daily life, but we don't become so busy counteracting and adjusting reversals and situations, but we reconnect situations with Krishna and with His will and His mercy, and that is the shift from material consciousness to spiritual consciousness, no longer separating things from Krishna. So our practice is a training of the mind and training our consciousness and our minds to again see everything in Krishna consciousness. See everything in the perspective of the ultimate cause and the ultimate purpose of life. That's another reason we see things with a very narrow perspective, is that we think that the goal of life is immediate sense gratification. So of course we will focus on the immediate situation. But when we understand that the ultimate goal of life is Krishna consciousness and love and service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then we readjust things, and we our consciousness and our activities should be in line with that goal. So how do we do this? This is like theoretical explanation of going from material consciousness to spiritual consciousness. But there's a method, because devotional service is a science of devotional service, so it's very practical. And Srila Prabhupada has explained how this, if we just follow the program that he's given, then that daily practice is what leads gradually to this shift in consciousness. So we are practicing Bhakti Yoga, and in Bhakti Yoga there is yoga. Yoga means controlling the mind and controlling the senses, and that comes through discipline. We can see in the world anything that we want to achieve, any great achievement that we want, whether it's athletics or some sport or academia, school, studies, things like that, or even actors, singers, all these so-called great achievements, they come through rigorous practice. And we can see the best athletes, they always training. They even had, my dad was telling me once about the cyclists, how they have nutritionists who tell them exactly what to eat and at what time, so they completely control everything. So it's very strict kind of practice that they have in order to achieve their goal. So if even for materialistic goals like that, people have the goal, they understand what they need to get there, and then they put that in place. So we also should do that in our spiritual life. We fix the goal in our mind, and we understand the goal, and we strengthen our faith and desire for that goal, and then we organize our lives accordingly in order to fulfill and to reach that goal. Not that there's the desire for the goal, but there should be a connection between every moment, what we're doing and thinking, and what we are aspiring for. Because where we will be tomorrow is what we are creating today. So, like that. And Rupa Goswami has explained basically what discipline means. It means anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam. Means we accept what is favorable for devotional service and we reject what is unfavorable for devotional service. And that's two of the main the 6 principles of surrender. So it's a very important part. So discipline means if we have to reject what is unfavorable and accept what is favorable, that means there will have to be some sacrifice. Maybe rejecting things that we are attached to because they are not conducive to my Krishna consciousness. or accepting things that are difficult, or pain, either physical or mental pain, or some kind of austerity for the higher goal. And in human life, the purpose of human life, the purpose of human life is tapasya. And tapasya is not just imposing austerity on ourselves, but it's this accepting what is favorable and rejecting what is unfavorable. So we understand what these favorable and unfavorable things are. Some are very clear, some are adjusted according to time, place and circumstance. So with guidance of the senior Vaishnavas and Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, we can understand in each situation what is favorable and what is unfavorable. And then with conviction, we accept to not do what we're not supposed to do, even if we really want to, and we accept to do what, and we don't do what we shouldn't do, even if we want to do it. And so this is our austerity. It's not just random austerities, but the austerity is this: whatever is beneficial for my Krishna consciousness, that I will do. What is not favorable, I will not do. Even if I'm full. And the pullings are there. They will always be there. The temptations. But Goswami means one who knows how to say no to these temptations and yes to what is favorable. And sometimes we may think that this discipline is very hard, or it's a bit fanatic, but actually it's easier to be disciplined than to be lax. Because it's the practice. The more you make the right decision, the easier it becomes to make the right decision. If one day you make the right one, the next one you don't have the strength to make the effort to make the right decision, it's more difficult the next time to make the right decision. It's like this feeding of the good dog and the bad dog in our heart, in our mind. The one you feed every day will become stronger, 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 and then almost it's not that there's no fight, but it's very easy to make the right decision. So it's easier actually to train to be strict and regular than to be, if one day I chant, tomorrow I don't chant, then the next day when I want to chant it will be harder because one day I didn't do it. So discipline means to be focusing the mind on our goal and what needs to be done to achieve the goal, giving attention to Krishna through our service, through our sadhana, through our relationships, through our japa. Japa is also a sacrifice. We're sacrificing all other thoughts and ideas just to give our attention to Krishna, because the goal is Krishna consciousness, so we have to give our attention to Krishna if we want to be conscious of him. So discipline means to make the choice to see Krishna's mercy also, Krishna's hand in every situation, and to strive to always remember him and never forget him. But so this is the part, the yoga part. But in our movement, we're not striving for yoga. We're striving for bhakti yoga. So there must be something more than this. It's not just discipline. Discipline is like the foundation. It's a tool that we can use. But to always remember Krishna and never forget him is more than just discipline. Queen Kunti prays in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Tvayi minanya vishaya madir madhupate sakrit ratim udvahatad ada gangevo gamudanvati. She's praying to Krishna that just like the Ganges flows without interruption towards the sea, may my attention and affection always be directed to you without being diverted to anyone or anything else. So she's praying to constantly be able to remember Krishna, to only be attracted to him and nothing else. And so from discipline we have to go to love. That should be the goal of our practice, not just the motions, but the inner what we're cultivating inside. So all our practices are not ends in themselves, they are means to express our sincere desire for Krishna consciousness. It's a means to make sacrifice, or means to regulate ourselves, means to be always engaged in devotional service, so that we can also develop this attitude of prayer, that may my mind and attraction always be going towards you, Krishna. So when we add the bhakti to the yoga, it means that we tolerate and we discipline ourselves, but for the purpose of pleasing Krishna. That's the goal of everything we are doing. If we're doing something that's because we think it's a good idea, but it's not pleasing to Krishna, it's useless. So there has to be this element of the consciousness in which we are doing things. And Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita again, Ragadvesha vimuktastu vichayan indriyascharam atma vasya videyatma prasadam adhigacchati, that if we control our senses, become free from attachment and aversion by following the regulative principles of freedom, then we can attain the complete mercy of the Lord. But we have to do this with the aspiration of obtaining His mercy, and we obtain His mercy when we please Him. So again, our daily activities, our daily thoughts, all our efforts are vehicles for us to express daily our desire to reconnect with Krishna, to learn to love Him and serve Him again and always remember Him. And in that consciousness, Krishna will respond, because what is that verse? I don't remember. As we surrender, Krishna reciprocates accordingly, and according to what we are aspiring for or cultivating, Krishna will also respond to that accordingly. Yeah, there we go. Yatam ram prapajanti tam sataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanumartante manushya partha sarvasaha. So, understanding that devotional service is an internal thing, and that is our aspiration. Samsiddhir haritoshanam. That is the ultimate goal of life. Atapumbir dvijashteshta varnashrama vibhagasha sanushtatasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. That is the ultimate goal of life. Samsiddhir haritoshanam, to please Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is our aspiration in everything we do. And this aspiration as a conditioned living entity is not fully integrated into our hearts. We have, through the association of devotees and reading and studying and hearing, we've understood that that should be our aspiration. But deep inside, maybe it's not quite, maybe it's intellectual, but we want it to become the aspiration of the heart. So that aspiration comes from hearing from devotees who have that aspiration and who are living out that aspiration. And we develop a taste for hearing by serving the great souls. Shushushosha dadanasya vasudeva kataruchi shanmayat sevaya vipra punyatirtha nishevanat. That by serving the great souls, that great service is done, and because we please them by that humble, submissive service, Krishna within the heart gives us the taste to hear Vasudeva Kataruchi, to hear the message of Vasudeva. And so through that service we gain the taste for hearing, and when we hear, and then we hear submissively the scriptures and with a taste, it helps us to cultivate that aspiration, to help us cultivate the proper desires, the proper desire to please Krishna with our life and surrender to Him. And so when through serving, then hearing and developing those aspirations, that desire becomes very strong in our heart, that there is actually no other thing that we desire more from the heart, not just from the intellect. That is the first level, but really from inside the heart. There is nothing higher that we are aspiring for. and to be attached to Krishna, attracted, want to serve him, then our perspective on life naturally will change, because our objective is clear and our desire and our only aspiration is clear, so it will almost not be an effort to organize our life according to that goal. And yeah, in the 11th canto there's another part. There's so many amazing parts, I took so many notes, so there's a lot of 11th canto quotes in here. But when Krishna consciousness gradually develops in our heart, we can understand that Krishna is the supreme controller and the supreme well-wisher. And in one purport, they said, as soon as one understands that everything exists under the powerful control of one's most beloved friend, one comes to the stage in which the whole universe becomes a blissful abode, because he sees Krishna everywhere. So in Krishna consciousness there is no question of this duality, no question of fear, lamentation, pleasure or pain. But at that point, when the attraction is so strong, it's almost not an effort anymore, because the attraction to Krishna is so strong, and naturally we're not affected by dualities. The devotee is not affected by dualities because he's seeing Krishna everywhere, so nothing is disconnected in his life. And in the purport, one last point, Prabhupada is quoting this verse from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, this verse by Lord Brahma, Tatenukampam Susamikshimano. That if the translation is that if in any situation of life, any reversal, if with folded hands we can thank the Supreme Personality of Godhead with a grateful heart, then the kingdom of God becomes our rightful claim. And Dayabhag, the word in the verse, means legitimate inheritor. So it's like, it is our due as children of God. It's natural for us to be in that situation. But that comes at the price of being able to thank Krishna in every situation. And Krishna's love, Krishna's mercy may not always come the way we expect it to come. Generally it doesn't. But if we're able to accept with faith, because we know that Krishna has supreme love for all the living entities, that he knows what is best for us, and we can understand how much he's taking care of us actually, because we express our desire to come back. So he organizes everything in our life to facilitate that, to give us opportunities to change our heart, to make sacrifice to him, for him, to please him, to remember him. And he's going to purify that desire with the trials, with the things that happen in life. And then I just want to finish on a story, pastime that I find very, it's one of my regular meditations, is the pastime of Kaliya. So Kaliya, the demon Kaliya, is actually one of the worst demons that came to Vrindavan in a sense, because the others were attacking Krishna, Balaram, trying to take them away or take away their devotees. But Kaliya actually poisoned all the cows and cowherd boys, and they appeared to die. So because his poison was in the lake that he was living in, it was killing so many things and had such a negative influence on the whole of Vrindavan. And so Krishna one day decided that he was going to put an end to this Kaliya's activities. And so he climbed up a tree and jumped onto Kaliya. And he started fighting with Kaliya, but actually Krishna's fighting with Kaliya is also, Krishna does so many things with one action. He was putting on the most sublime dance performance at the same time. So he was dancing on the hoods of Kaliya. And when the demigods saw this, they thought it was amazing. So they got all their instruments out and they put musical accompaniment. And the Apsaras, Gandharvas singing and dancing. And for them it was a whole festival up there. Kaliya was not having a nice festival. Krishna's feet is explained that to a devotee they are more soft than a freshly budded lotus, but to Kaliya they were like thunderbolts, because Kaliya was rejecting Krishna, so Krishna was adjusting his relationship with Kaliya. So anyway, this lasted a long time, that Krishna was dancing on the hoods of Kaliya, and Kaliya was becoming more and more frustrated, and then he was becoming exhausted, and he started vomiting all his poison and blood and so many things, and he was exhausted. But at the end of all that, there's beautiful prayers in the Bhagavatam, Kaliya's prayers to Krishna, when he has a change of heart after all that. He understands and he appreciates Krishna, and he surrenders his heart to Krishna right then and there after all that. And it's beautiful because I heard an explanation that Krishna also comes to dance on our heads, but that's not how we perceive it. Krishna's feet, Krishna's hand are acting upon us to bring us to that point, like Kaliya, of really surrendering the heart. But from our perspective, we just get the blows. We just feel like we're being hit and smashed here and there, and all our poison comes out, all our anarthas, all our bad qualities. It comes to the surface, and we have to kind of live through that and see it, tolerate the vision. And so actually we can see that there's Krishna dancing on my false ego. Krishna is helping to bring me to that point of surrendering. If I cannot do it the easy way, then it will be the hard way. He doesn't want to do that to us, but if we don't spontaneously have that attitude, then Krishna will help us in increasing intensity until we understand and until we come to that point, but it's only for our benefit. As we can see in the pastime of Kaliya, the ultimate did change his heart. So with this, I think about that often, because again, with this limited perspective, we just think, ow, it hurts every time we hit, it hurts. But if we zoom out, we can see the demigods, which represent the devotees who have spiritual vision. They're very happy because they can see that Krishna is expressing his love to the living entity. And a very interesting aspect of Kaliya's pastime, how he got to that point. The only reason, actually, he's the only demon who got not impersonal liberation, but who got to associate with Krishna, is because, does anyone know why he's special, why he got special treatment, and why he wasn't killed, but he surrendered his heart? Anyone know? Yeah, his wives were praying for him. The devotees were praying for him. So that's an important element also in that. It's the only reason that Kaliya got different treatment and he became a Vaishnava, is that devotees were praying for him.
That's like the Yangik Brahmanas from Mathura.
Yeah.
The wives were friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
They introduced their husband to real Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, exactly. And so, one last thing, just to like poetic conclusion from the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's again in the 10th canto, in the chapter called Description of Autumn. In both the verse and the purport, as explained there, there's a comparison made between a devotee and a mountain. So the verse says, devotees whose minds are absorbed in the personality of Godhead remain peaceful even when attacked by all sorts of dangers. The mountains in the rainy season were not at all disturbed by the repeated striking of the rain-bearing clouds. And in the purport it says, an advanced devotee of the Supreme Lord is not shaken by from his devotional program by disturbing conditions, which instead cleanse his heart of the dust of attachment to this world. Thus the devotee becomes beautiful and resplendent by tolerating difficult situations. In fact, a devotee accepts all reverses in life as the mercy of Lord Krishna, realizing that all suffering is due to the sufferer's own previous misdeeds. So we can just meditate on that like a mountain that will become cleansed with the rain and lightning and thunder. We'll become more beautiful and resplendent as Vaishnavas with all these reversals that we gracefully tolerate and pass through. Like gold, become more and more pure, the more intense the fire, and the longer it is in the fire, the more it will become beautiful in the eyes of Krishna, not in the eyes of the world, but in the eyes of Krishna. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much for listening to me and to the class. Does anyone have any questions or corrections?
A silly question.
There's no silly
Kalia
questions.
is the serpent-like thing?
Yeah,
with the hoods?
many, yeah.
It's a silly question, I mean.
Thousands of hoods, yes. Thousands of hoods we had. Yes, Kalia. So.
Nagas, dragons.
Dragons, not serpents.
That are worshipped in China.
Okay.
Thank you, Mataji, for your class. Well prepared. And one thing is, in the purport of today, it says, Srila Prabhupada actually is saying that it's still, we are still forbearing the result of our past activities. So it seems to me that there's still some traces of lingering karmas. But when you look at that purport 10.14.8, of course it's no more Srila Prabhupada, but they say there's not karma, it's the semblance of karma, and actually it is the sweet hand of the Lord which is touching the weaknesses of heart in us, where Lord Krishna is addressing those issues. And to outsiders it seems like it is karma, but it is not. According to the purport of 10.14.8, whereas today Prabhupada is saying it's karma.
Yeah. Yeah, but in that verse, it says it's Lord Krishna's hand destroying the enjoying propensities.
So it's a bit peculiar.
Because he also has explained that it's not karma, but he does use our karma. So maybe that's the thing, that it's not our karma, that it's just ordained by the demigod's calculations or something. Krishna is using it, but it's still related to our karma. That was my understanding of it. So.
You kind of mentioned something about discriminating between good or bad. That has to be related to our personal feelings, doesn't it? Because we have to be able to discriminate between good and bad outside of something. Seems like a bad person, I'll keep away from that person. Just to make it clear.
Like if we should discriminate, or?
Well, yes and no. I've got a feeling it's both.
About what is favorable and not favorable?
Yeah, I mean, if it's related to us, talking about austerities, trying to make a decision between what's good and what's bad for our Krishna consciousness. So that's the thing that we do in our lives, have to kind of discriminate between good and bad outside of us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I'll say something and then you can tell me if it's that that you're saying or not. So there's some things that we accept and reject as very clear for everyone. I was saying some principles that are like the same for everyone practically. And then there's others that are really according to the situation that we're in, that we also have to be able to tell what is favorable and what is unfavorable. And so a lot we get from the Shastras and from the Guru. Some things in a situation when we are not sure, that's why sadhu is important, the spiritual authorities that we can speak with. If it's like a bigger thing, then with their light, their vision, if we cannot see, we get their vision. We say, okay, there's this, and I'm not sure what is favorable, what's unfavorable actually, because sometimes it may seem counterintuitive to our materialistic and illusioned consciousness. Or vague, yeah, vague, or I think this is favorable, but actually it's not. So that it's like a consciousness is like a hot air balloon. So if we're actually making progress, some things will become easier to decide on. And sometimes we do have to make decisions without asking someone all the time. Then we just use our common sense and try to use our intelligence. I had someone asking this question once, and the answer was we have to use our intelligence, our God-given intelligence, and sincerity, that we do want to make the right decision, not that we want to justify making the wrong one. That's another thing. It's a bit tricky, but
it is tricky.
But if we're not sure, and we can ask senior devotees also. And you're speaking, for example, about people association, and we do need to discriminate. We don't judge, but we discriminate. What is favorable, what is unfavorable. And if some association is unfavorable because the conversation is prajalpa, or it's criticism, or it's not Krishna conscious, then we respect, but we discriminate. We say that is not favorable for my Krishna consciousness. Better I associate with someone who is more fixed in devotional service, who will speak about Krishna, who will help me with my practice.
And a lot of awareness comes into play, doesn't it?
A lot of awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it's we don't base our Krishna consciousness on feelings, but sometimes it is like intuition, or we have some exchange with someone and we go away and feel completely drained and think, my God, that was not uplifting. But that doesn't mean we judge, but we do discriminate on a daily basis what to do and what not to do. Does that kind of answer? I'm not sure.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the question.
It's okay.
Good question.
Thank you for your question.
It's a good question.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question.
Why, sorry. That's why we are here, to share every day and learn.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Kantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki